Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Inu Hanendra. Please let me continue the presentation about derivation. So let's start from the resultative. What is resultative? A resultative form denotes a state resulting from some action. For example, ice is a frozen water. This crucible contains melted steel. The roof was thatched with dried gas. Nah, the word frozen, melted, and dried are the resultative form corresponding to freeze, melted, and dried, a result from the action of freezing, melting, and drying. And the next, the existence of gaps. Usually there is at least one gap. Now, for example, the word noble. In this case, there happens to be no incorrective form corresponding to the state denoting noble and the causative ennoble. We could use a phrase become noble to convey the incorrective meaning. Now, a gap is morphologically derived from with the indicated meaning, which could be created by means of an existing derivational process in the language, is simply not used, and then the productivity of various derivational process. A derivational process is completely productive if it can be used to produce an existing derived from every appropriate source word. It is doubtful whether any derivational process is actually completely productive, but some are very productive and others hardly productive at all. The next is three terms of derivational process. There are three terms. For the first one, a syntactic term. For example, we change the word verb to noun, and then a morphological term. For example, we add a suffix ly or ly, and then a semantic term. For example, producing a new sense like adjunctive. Now, it is necessary to do this because often the same morphological process can correlate with different semantic or syntactic processes. Now, for example, the suffix ry or ery, ry or array, is associated with a number of different semantics classes of words. The most important of these can be labeled as, for the first one, occupation, activity, and behavior. For example, dentistry, forestry, gunnery, archery, and tomfoolery. And then the second one is physical location. For example, bakery, grocery. And then the last one, collections of objects. For example, cutlery, crockery, finery, and jewelry. And then there are kind of dictionary entries. The examples below of partial dictionary entries for derived forms. For example, the word larger is actually a comparative form of large, and then unpleasant is the negative form of pleasant, and then there are two words of widen. The first one is the incorrective of wide, and then the second one is the causative of widen. And then tigress, it is the feminizer of tiger, and then burnt is a resultative of burn. Now, the formulation partial dictionary entries was drawn from comparative, incorrective, causative, negative, feminizer, and resultative. And the terms negative, incorrective, feminizer have a similar function to other technical terms which may be used in dictionary entries, such as symmetric, transitive, reflexive, and etc. Whereas these latter terms describe sense properties of predicates. Now, the terms like negative, incorrective, and etc. describe complex sense relations between predicates. Thus, these terms are parallel to the technical semantic terms eponym and converse, which also describe sense relations between predicates, and just as the terms symmetric, transitive, etc. can be regarded as shorthand for information spelled out in exact detail in meaning postulates. Terms like causative and negative stand for somewhat complex sense relations whose details can be made explicit by meaning postulates. And then suppletion. Suppletion is a process whereby, in irregular and in idiosyncratic cases, substitution of morphologically unrelated form is associated with the specific semantic and or syntactic process normally accompanying a morphological process. For example, the word bad and worse. It is a case of suppletion. Worse is clearly semantically related to bad in exactly the same way. On the other hand, larger is related to large, but there is no morphological relationship between the two words. An example, there is no phonetic similarity between them. And then the conclusion. Derivation, it can be concluded that derivation emphasizes morphological, syntactic, and semantic components and the issue of productivity. Now, in today's presentation, we learn about the relatively small and well understood set, concentrating on the notions incorrective, causative, resolutive, and comparative. Nah, derivation itself deals with new lexeme information through affixation the word, and then derivation formulation change the word class of the base. Therefore, that the process of derivation is either changing the meaning. Derivation acts to change the semantic meaning of a root or the class of the base to which they are attached, or changing the word class base that a base belongs to. The changing of word class can be noun to verb, verb to noun, or adjective to noun. Derivation is addition of an affix. Affix is the tool of word formation in derivational process. Affix is bound grammatical unit which is not categorized as word, but it can attach to other units to form a word or a new word. Derivation is the process of forming new word on the basis of an existing word. It often involves the addition of morpheme in the form of prefix or suffix. Derivation stands in contrast to the process of inflection, which means that the formation of grammatical variants of the same word. Derivation is a process of word formation through the additional affix, which can be a prefix or suffix. The resulting new word will have a different meaning of the word essentially. Derivatives are derivatives derive from other words or from the base or base verb or properties and the like. Particle added called affixes. Particle is added at the beginning of a word is called prefix, in the middle is called infix, and at the end is called a suffix. This is the reference, and then this is the journal analysis. I got it from academia.edu. It is published on September 2018, and the title is The Analysis of Derivation in Conversation Scripts. This is it. This is the abstract. In this paper, it is stated that many students didn't recognize and aware of using word derivation. This paper is trying to reveal the words derivation that the students use in their speaking class conversation, whether or not it is affected the semantic. The word derivation itself make the conversation more simple and specific to the topic. And then let's go to the method. It is stated in the paper that the writer used qualitative interpretative research in order to analyze the process of derivation in more detail. There are three simultaneous processes, namely morphological, and then syntactic process, and semantic process. The researcher only analyzed 5 of 22 scripts because of the limited time. And then let's go to the finding. From the finding, it is stated that the students' conversation script that have been analyzed, the writer found out that many students use suffix ed, ut, or ing, ing, like graduated and getting. But this morphological process belonged to inflection because it didn't change the meaning of words. Rather than change the tenses of a sentence, many students didn't really aware with the use of derivational words. Only 3 students conversational scripts didn't insert any derivational words at all, while the other 2 insert very little derivational words. They are prayer, brighten, and friendship. Now the other scripts used to explain make it bright rather than brighten, and friends relationship rather than friendship. It shows that the students' understanding in using derivational words to create more simple and systematic sentences are quite low and less. And then this is the analysis. There are 3 derivational words: prayer, brighten, and friendship. And then this is the morphological process. For the prayer, the students add suffix er, and then for the brighten, the student add suffix n or en, and then for the friendship, it's a compound word from friend and ship. And then for the syntactic process, for the prayer, they change the verb to noun. They change the verb to noun or adjective, and then the brighten change adjective to verb. And then for the syntactic of friendship, it's a compound noun and noun. Now for the prayer, for the semantic process, they produce word denoting an agent or property, and then for brighten, produce word denoting an act, and then for friendship, produce word denoting an agent. Now the prayer in I hope my prayer will be heard by him, so that the prayer or the word prayer here is not as an agent, as someone who pray, but as the property of the sentence. And then the brighten, and so that it will brighten my skin, so that brighten here is not as a property anymore, rather than as an act to make my skin bright. Now with friendship, in our friendship will be last forever. It is the combining of word friend and ship. Now based on the data above, we can conclude that the derivation words have a big contribution to make the meaning in sentences meaningful without any long interpretation. Now, the conclusion of this research, it is stated that based on the research finding above, the writer concluded that the students' ability in using derivational words in their conversation is very low average. The students still use to explain certain words in long sentence, then use its derivational word like prayer or brighten. It means that students' understanding in semantic meaning is still low or less, and then the students need more understanding about semantic derivation. And before that, the students also need to enrich their vocabulary to support their understanding in derivational words, because the low-level average students' semantic derivational understanding. That is said, in this case, every solution lecture should be creative to enrich not only students' vocabulary but also students' understanding in derivation, to use it in conversation, either daily conversation or classroom conversation.